What up, everybody? What are you guys doing? It is so cold. When I tell you so cold, man, it is so cold in the A. It's cold here, y'all. I can't take it. It is so cold here. I had to run to the bank. And when I tell you I hurried the hell back up in my house, it is too cold out there. Y'all, it's freezing out there. Y'all gotta stay warm. It's cold as hell. It's cold, y'all. Y'all gotta stay warm. But we gonna get into this because what I said I'm not going to do is let off Donald Trump's ass, okay? Donald Trump and his administration is wreaking havoc on our democracy. Let's just call it what it is. Now, we spoke about this before, and we're going to speak about it again. Now, people are really having an issue with this. These were, people that was in a boat, and these people were unalived, and they are calling this a war crime because this shouldn't have happened, okay? So let's get into it.
Administration doubling down on the decision to strike an alleged drug boat near Venezuela in early September twice. NBC News reporting that second strike was ordered after the first failed to kill everyone on board, according to a U.S. official and a source familiar with the Pentagon's actions. Some lawmakers now raising legal concerns if the second strike targeted survivors, with questions growing about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's role.
Does the administration deny that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Abe. Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law.
Admiral Frank Bradley is overseeing the growing U.S. military buildup in the region, which the administration says is targeting drug traffickers. Lawmakers on both sides now calling for more information.
And we're going to try to get to the facts.
Some say targeting incapacitated survivors after the initial strike could be a war crime.
You don't do that. Everybody knows that. That is against the Geneva Conventions.
On Sunday, President Trump was asked about a second strike aimed at killing survivors.
Number one, I don't know that happened, but no, I wouldn't have wanted that, not a second strike.
Hegseth now placing responsibility for the second strike on Admiral Bradley, posting, "He has my 100% support. I stand by him and the combat decisions he has made." Meanwhile, President Trump held an Oval Office meeting Monday with his team, including Hegseth, to discuss Venezuela. Also meeting with the president yesterday, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who posted afterwards that she was recommending a new domestic policy, a, quote, full travel ban on every damn country that's been flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies. Trump has intensified his crackdown on immigration in the wake of last week's shooting of 2 National Guard members in Washington, allegedly by an Afghan national who entered the U.S. legally in 2021. Overnight, President Trump shared Secretary Noem's post on social media. We've reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for more details and have not heard back. Certainly all of this, the proposed expanded travel ban and the Venezuela developments, are expected to be front and center when President Trump meets with his cabinet in front of cameras later today, Savannah.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you very much.
Well, what we do know is no accountability. These people are all over the place. We got some crackheads pretty much running the damn country. That is pretty much what it boils down to. No one is taking accountability for these people that were pretty much murdered, okay? Because it is a war crime to continue to pounce on somebody that they're not a threat. Like, these people are literally trying to save their own lives. We have to get these people out of the position that they're in.
Reality TV and politics. Donald Trump has had one and only one play: bullying his opponents into silence. He did it as a failed casino owner who bankrupted his properties and screwed over his contractors. He did it as a reality TV host known for firing people. And he's done it as president who tries every day to intimidate people with no regards for the rights or well-being of the American people. I'll say this for the guy. While he's never seemed to do much else right, for most of Donald Trump's career, bullying people has worked out for him. But not now. Because I won't let it happen. The American people won't let it happen. President Trump is trying to silence me, threatening to kill me for saying what is true. And he sent his Secretary of Defense after me. And it's not going to work. Here's how we got here. A week and a half ago, Senator Slotkin and I, along with others who also served in the military and the intelligence communities, we released a video with a simple message to service members that they must refuse illegal orders. Nothing was controversial about that. Everyone must follow the law. No one may break the law. This is pretty basic stuff. Seeing that video, here's how any other president would have responded. They would have said 2 words, of course. But that's not how this president responded. We've become so accustomed to Donald Trump's behavior that it is worth emphasizing. The President of the United States said that 2 U.S. senators and 4 members of the House of Representatives should be arrested, hanged, executed for something we said, for something that is true. My family knows the cost of political violence. My wife, Gabby, was shot in the head and nearly died while speaking with her constituents. The president should understand this too. He has been the target of political violence himself. The Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives, Melissa Hortman, and her husband were murdered in their home this year. The governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, had his house firebombed this year. Then Charlie Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University, a place I visited just a few weeks ago with Republican Senator John Curtis. Faced with a wave like this, every other president we have ever had in the history of this nation would have tried to heal the country. But we all know Donald Trump. He uses every single opportunity to divide us. And that's dangerous. The president's words carry tremendous weight. People listen to him. And he knows that. And that's exactly why he does what he does. He makes these threats to silence people. And if that doesn't work, he abuses his power to intimidate people. And with the consent of Republicans in the United States Senate, he has surrounded himself with people like the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who will do whatever he says with no question, no matter what. Trump and Hegseth, they care more about publicity than they do about the rule of law. That's how I ended up finding out via a tweet that the Secretary of Defense was ordering an investigation into me. The same Secretary of Defense who has, from the moment he was nominated, has been historically unqualified for this position. The same Secretary of Defense who is reported to have ordered a second strike to kill shipwreck survivors in the Caribbean. If there is anyone who needs to answer questions in public and under oath, it is Pete Hegseth. It's a dangerous moment for the United States of America when the president and his loyalists use every lever of power to silence United States senators for speaking up. But we all know that this isn't about me, and it's not about the others in that video. They're trying to send a message to retired service members, to government employees, to members of the military, to elected officials, and to all Americans who are thinking about speaking up. You better keep your mouth shut or else. This has been a singular focus of President Trump's second term. Not addressing costs, not creating jobs, intimidating people, and going after the people he views as his political opponents. He's done it to companies. You better write a check to build my ballroom, or I might not approve your merger. He's done it with universities. You better fire your president, or I'll pull your research funding. He's even done it to late night hosts. You better not make jokes that I do not like, or I'll get you taken off the air, and I'm going to take your company's broadcast license. And he does it every week with Republicans in the House and the Senate. You better toe the party line, or I'll make sure you never get reelected. Folks, this comes at a cost. And not only to American companies, colleges, and comedians. It damages every American's freedom of speech and the balance of powers that form the foundation of our democracy. Because when Republicans in Congress are too afraid to disagree with this president, it means that his bad ideas go unchallenged. He has slapped reckless tariffs on countries across the globe, skyrocketing the cost of everything from groceries to school supplies. Republicans historically, well, at least a year ago, they hated tariffs. But when it comes to voting to undo them, they are too afraid of Donald Trump. So Americans pay more for just about everything because of spineless politicians. It's the same with healthcare costs. There are Republicans in the House and the Senate who really want to do something to prevent these healthcare premiums from spiking for millions of Americans. The solutions are simple, but President Trump says he doesn't want to. So nothing happens. Nothing except a government shutdown. It goes on and on. The president has gone too far. Everybody needs to wake up. The occupant of the Oval Office is ignorant to the Constitution and has no regard for the rule of law. Trying to silence me, in proposing to court-martial me, in threatening to kill me for fighting back when our democracy demands that we must fight back. President Trump has crossed the line. And this time, it's not going to work. I will not be intimidated by this president. I am not going to be silenced by this president or the people around him, because I've given too much in service to this country to back down to this guy. In 1991, when Donald Trump was driving the Taj Mahal casino into bankruptcy, I was getting shot at over Iraq and Kuwait. In 2001, after Donald Trump said that the collapse of the Twin Towers meant he now owned the tallest skyscraper in Manhattan, I was carrying flags honoring 9/11 victims into space on a rocket ship. In 2003, when Donald Trump was writing birthday greetings to the monster Jeffrey Epstein, I was the first on the scene to recover the bodies of my fellow astronauts who died when Space Shuttle Columbia exploded during re-entry. In 2011, when Trump was hosting a reality show and peddling conspiracy theories against President Barack Obama, I was sitting next to my wife's hospital bed as she recovered from a gunshot wound to the head. My point is this: I've been through a lot worse in service to my country. The president and Pete Hegseth are not going to silence me. They aren't going to keep me from speaking out, and they're not going to keep me from doing my job. Enough of the bullying, enough of the intimidation, enough of the threats, enough of your nonsense. Doesn't help anyone in our country afford their groceries or pay their medical bills. And it erodes the rights of every American. My job is to fight for them, to stand up for the Constitution, and nothing is going to stop me from doing my job. Thank you, and I'll take some questions. Hold on a second. Give me that folder there. Just sit this down here. Can you, I know it's Manu from CNN, but for everybody, just starting with you, just say who you are, what station.
The White House said today that Admiral Bradley gave the order for that second strike on the Venezuelan boat. They also said this was a lawful strike. Yesterday, you said the second strike could be a war crime. Do you think that Bradley committed a war?
Let me just start, Manu, by saying that there needs to be an investigation. We need to pull some of these members of DOD and the military into the armed services committees in the House and the Senate. That's what the White House is saying. I hope what has been reported is not accurate. I revere members of the United States Navy, especially special operators, Navy SEALs. These are the most highly trained, individuals in our military. I have deep, deep respect for them. So I hope what we are hearing is not accurate. I will say though, as somebody who has sunk 2 ships myself, that folks in the military need to understand, the law of the sea, the Geneva Conventions, what the law says. And I'm concerned that if there were, in fact, as reported, survivors clinging to a damaged vessel, that could be, over a line. I hope it's not the case. I truly do.
Should Admiral Bradley resisted that order?
Again, I am, not sure of all the facts yet. I don't want to prejudge before we have all the information. I think it's important for there to be an investigation. The inspectors general of DOD needs to investigate this. Unfortunately, an unqualified Secretary of Defense fired a bunch of them and got rid of a bunch of lawyers. Pete Hegseth, do I have a lot of confidence in DOD? Well, hopefully we have, inspectors general there that will be doing an impartial investigation. I think we should wait for the results of those investigations.
Regarding this press conference, the investigation into your actions, have you spoken with DOD or DOJ or anyone? Have there been any conversations, any interviews yet?
Like I said in my remarks, I was notified of a potential court-martial through a tweet by the Secretary of Defense. I mean, think about that for a second. How ludicrous is that? That's the only notification that we have received to date. And I think that says a lot about who Pete Hegseth is and what he cares about. He doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about process. He doesn't care about accountability. He cares about views on his Twitter account. And that's a big problem. I mean, I want to ask you guys this question. Have you ever in the history of our country seen a less qualified or less professional Secretary of Defense? I cannot think of one. Yeah.
Senator Kelly, Nathaniel Reeves, News. Are you concerned about threats on your life? Have you stepped up for your personal security and, of course, the security of your wife?
Hey, I'm no stranger. You know, Gabby and I are no stranger to political violence. We get a lot of threats already. She continues to get threats. She gets threats on her life, more so today because what Donald Trump said about me 10 days ago, that I should be hanged, that I should be executed. The threats on us have obviously gone up. I'm not going to get into details about my personal security. We take these threats very seriously. And I take, you know, the threats from this president seriously. How many times in our country's history have you heard a president of the United States say that members of the Senate and the House should be hanged and executed? I mean, I can't think of one. Those words carry a lot of weight. The number of calls, threatening calls that we get into our office have skyrocketed. And they were very graphic. I mean, some of them were put, not from my office, but another member put them out there for people to hear. Ones we get are worse than that. So I take this seriously, but again, you know, that's why he does these things, because he thinks he can shut me up. I have First Amendment rights. I'm a United States Senator. I am doing my job. I'm on the Armed Services, the Intelligence Committee. He ain't gonna shut me up. I mean, he intimidates other people. I'm not intimidated by Donald Trump or Pete Hegseth or anybody else.
Thank you, Senator Nicole Killian with CBS News. Are you aware, just back on Venezuela, are you aware of whether or not the Secretary has had, and Secretary Hegseth, if he's had any conversations with any members of the Armed Services Committee, and in terms of these calls to investigate, do you believe the Secretary and Admiral Bradley should appear before the Armed Services?
They absolutely should appear. You know, I've talked to the chairman of Armed Services about it and the ranking member. They should absolutely appear. I'm not so confident they will. This is not an administration that tends to follow any norms. But we need to get to the bottom of this, of what happened. And we are not Russia and Iraq. I'm really concerned if the reporting is correct. Again, I hope the reporting about this incident is not accurate. What the White House said today actually indicated it might be, but we're going to have to see.
Going back to the DOD matter, are you considering any legal action for this risk of being court-martialed or any of the fees or risk of investigation?
You mean like me suing Donald Trump for what he said? I think what he said about us is dangerous. It's ridiculous. It is a violation of our constitutional rights as Americans and our rights as senators to do our job. And he's trying to intimidate us. But I have not considered that, not at this point.
Thank you, Senator. Senator today. Do you see this as fundamentally First Amendment issue for you that you're going to highlight against the president with this amnesty? And how do you see the whole process playing out?
Well, again, this isn't really about me. And that's why I think people are kind of got this a little bit off here. It's not about me. It's not about the other 5 members in the video. It's not about Alyssa Slotkin, Chris DeLuzio, Chrissy Houlihan, Jason Crow, Maggie Goodlander. It's not about us. This is about a president who doesn't want anybody to say anything that he does not like. I don't think he understands the Constitution. I'm serious about this. I think he is ignorant to the Constitution and the rule of law. And he just wants to silence us, and it starts with us. And that's one of the reasons people say, well, why wouldn't you just, back off? Because this isn't about me. This is about what he will do next. Who's he going to go after next? Which service member? Which government employee? Which citizen who decides to say something that this president doesn't like? And then he goes after them. In my case, with the Secretary of Defense, who knows what's next? With the Attorney General? I mean, this DOJ has been just, attacking people for all kinds of stuff. And what's next? Our First Amendment rights? Ain't happening.
Bill Robertson, Washington Post. Can you tell us anything more about the FBI's involvement in the inquiry into you and the other lawmakers who appeared in the video? Have you scheduled an interview with them?
We haven't heard all that much. We got notified. I think the better question is, what is their motivation? Like, did this come from the FBI? Do you guys think the FBI, they went into their meeting that morning and said, of all the stuff that's going on in the country right now, we got to get right on top of this. These guys said something the president didn't like, and now we've got to do something about it. Or do you think it's possible that the president told his FBI director to tell the FBI agents to reach out to these guys? So I think this is a good question for you. All of you in here should be asking the FBI those questions. I don't have the answers to them. Yeah.
Can you tell us anything more about the Senate Armed Services Committee's inquiry into the September 2nd strike, the nature of the request for information submitted, what information has been sent back from DOD so far in your conversations with the chairman?
Well, we had a brief on the first 3 strikes. And I have said this, before 10 days ago, that they're tying themselves in knots trying to explain why this entire operation is legal. And I imagine eventually, I hope you have an opportunity to see the legal argument that they made to do this. It's important for the American people to see it. We have to get folks before the committee. And, that process might take a little while. But I ultimately think we're going to get to the bottom of this. And again, if what seems to happen actually happened, I'm really worried about our service members. I was talking about this from the beginning of this operation, that the thing that I am most concerned about is the very difficult situations that this Secretary of Defense is going to put service members into. And it's because this guy is so unqualified for the job. I mean, think about this. He runs around on a stage talking about lethality and warrior ethos and killing people. We have the most competent, capable military this planet has ever seen by far. That's not the message that needs to come from the Secretary of Defense. The message should be about what's our mission and accountability and the rule of law and training. And let me make sure you're equipped to do really hard jobs. Let me give you all the tools you need to do something that often is an impossible mission. And instead, he runs around on a stage like he's a 12-year-old playing Army. And it is ridiculous. It is embarrassing. And I can't imagine what our allies think of looking at that guy in this job, one of the most important jobs in our country. In my view, after the President of the United States, it is the next most important job. He is in the National Command Authority for Nuclear Weapons. And last night, he's putting out on the internet turtles with rocket-propelled grenades. Have you seen this? This is the Secretary of Defense. This is not a serious person. He should have been fired after Signalgate. And then every single day after that.
Alex Report of ABC News. Just to put a finer point on it, because you were quite vocal about the sort of flimsy legality that was being offered during the briefings, were these sort of strikes that are now in the news what you were making reference to when you posted that video telling members of the military that they needed to feel okay to obey orders that they felt were illegal?
Based on who this president is and who the Secretary of Defense is, and specifically things that the president has said in the past and things he was talking about doing in the future. Let me give you an example. 2016, he's talking about something on a debate stage that was clearly illegal. And he was reminded by Brett Baer from Fox News that that would be an illegal order. Military won't do that. You know what the president's response was to that? The military will not refuse my orders, implying that even if they are illegal, they will not refuse them. He's also talked about shooting protesters in the legs. Then he's talking about deploying more troops to American cities and using those cities as training grounds. Do you know what that means? That means using the American people for the military to train on. So we were looking forward to try to head something off at the pass that could have been really, really bad. So it wasn't about this specific thing.
The NDAA conference report is set to come out later this week, over the weekend, or early next week. In addition to that, you all have not yet conferenced out the defense appropriations bill for the current fiscal year. Do you see either of those as options for you and other lawmakers concerned about the Defense Department, the actions in Venezuela, and other situations to address those legislatively in either the NDAA or defense approach?
Well, I think it could be if we could get bipartisan support to do something like that. Sure. That's sometimes challenging because, you know, remember, my Republican colleagues, not all of them, but most of them, are fearful of this president. They do not want to cross him. I mean, they see what just happened to me. I said something that he did not like, and he said, I will be hanged, executed, prosecuted. He doesn't even have the order right. Yeah.
Michael Chanel with MS Now. You mentioned earlier that the video was meant to tell service members something that's already law, that they're not required to obey, to act on legal orders. Since it already is the law, and presumably service members are aware of the law, why did the six of you guys feel it was necessary to make the video?
Well, I think it's good for people to get a reminder. And we wanted to show that we had their back and we understood the situation they were in. Pretty simple. And we said something that is in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. According to the law of armed combat, we stated something pretty simple. Every service member doesn't hear these reminders as frequently as other service members. So we felt it was important to say under the circumstances. Right here. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Senator. Joe Capponi with the Associated Press. When you participated in the video, did you expect that the president would respond? Was that part of your expectation?
We did a video before that he did not respond to. I was really surprised that he responded at all. And I thought if he was going to respond, so what I just said when I gave my remarks, I thought he would have said, of course, members of the military shouldn't follow illegal orders. So when he said, I was sitting in the skiff next to Alyssa Slotkin, by the way, when somebody comes in with a little piece of paper and it says, I could see what it said on it as it was handed to her, President just called for your execution. She leaves the room. 5 minutes later, she comes back. She says to me, he's called for your execution too. That was not the response we expected.
Two questions. As you say, you're still gathering the facts, still not clear exactly what happened here. But if the Secretary of Defense did issue an order to kill people after on the second strike like this, is that an impeachable offense? Taking apart the numbers in the House, but in theory, is that a potentially impeachable offense to you? And then second, healthcare. Short time here to figure out what's going to happen in healthcare. Just what's your involvement right now in response to this?
Well, on the first question, I think that's a question for attorneys. I am not an attorney. I don't pretend to be one. That is true. Of course, I do not know the specifics on that part, of the law about impeachment. And again, let me remind folks that we're in the early days of this. And I think it's important to get all the facts for we to understand exactly what happened. Again, I hope what is being reported is not the case. But there needs to be an investigation, and we are a country of laws. Despite the apparent situation we're in with a president of the United States who, in my opinion, does not respect the law. We're a country of laws. We got to hold people accountable. On the healthcare, situation, we've got some time. I'd like to see a bipartisan solution because millions of my constituents, the people I represent in Arizona, and millions of more people across the country are not going to be able to afford their healthcare. And they're one accident or illness away from bankruptcy. People lose their health care, they die. We can fix this. We have time to fix this. We know what to do. But again, doesn't seem the president of the United States wants to do anything on this. If he wants to help the American people, he should engage with the United States Congress on fixing this spiking of premiums, fixing this issue.
Have you, Liz Ruskin, Alaska Public Media, have you received messages of support, public or private, from your Republican colleagues?
Yes, and some of it's public.
Can you tell us a bit about those?
Well, some people put out statements, and I got some private calls, which I will not get into. But there are some, you could Google it. There are some, positive, but we're in an unfortunate period here where we have a president that does not like to be crossed. And if he's going to say to a U.S. senator that you should be executed for what you say, that sends a very chilling message, not only through the United States Senate and the House to Republicans, but across the entire nation.
Thank you, Senator. Ryan Schmelz from Fox News Radio. I wanted to see whether it's the FBI or the Department of War, a lot of them are requesting hearings or investigations with you. Are you planning to cooperate if that is the case?
I will follow the law. Yeah.
Jim Kuzingar with the Boston Globe. You mentioned that some of your Republican colleagues have been bullied by the president. With regards to the boat strikes in the Caribbean, what's your level of confidence that this investigation in the Senate Armed Services Committee will go forward and get to the truth?
I have confidence, tremendous confidence in the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Roger Wicker, senator from Mississippi, and the ranking member, Jack Reed. And I've spoken to him about this, and I know he's going to try to do a thorough job. Where I don't have a lot of confidence is in the Secretary of Defense and what he has done to this department, firing JAG officers, firing inspectors general. He's decimated it. Firing people in the leadership of DOD just because of the color of their skin or if they're a woman. So I have about zero confidence in the Secretary of Defense. I have tremendous confidence in the chairman of the Armed Services Committee.
Connor O'Brien from Politico. Senator Schatz tweeted this afternoon, he said Pete Hegseth needs to testify in the month of December before we pass a defense authorization. And I'm just curious, as a member of Armed Services, do you agree with that approach? Should Democrats be open to potentially, holding up NDA to leverage testimony, information, whatever in this process?
I spent 25 years in the United States Navy. I understand the importance of the defense bill and the programs that we authorize and the changes we make to policy through that piece of legislation. I've talked to Senator Schatz, and we'll continue to talk about this, but in general, my view, on this is we've got to be very thoughtful about how we handle the process of the defense bill. Yes.
Just to clarify, you were not briefed on the double tap of the first strike. None of your briefings have included that. If Hegseth will not testify, will you call on Admiral Halsey of Southcom to come in and testify? And then lastly, on Venezuela, should the United States strike inside Venezuelan territory, do you think that is legal?
So I'm going to have a conversation with the chairman and the ranking member about who specifically, we bring in to testify, whether we do it in public or not. I would generally prefer public hearing. We should probably do both. One in a classified setting, one publicly, so the American people could see. I'm still trying to figure out the justification that Donald Trump has if he was to, conduct kinetic strikes into Venezuela. What's the goal? Why hasn't he communicated this to the American people? That's the job of the president, to lay out a case before we go to war. And if it is about removing Maduro, how do you square that with pardoning Juan Hernandez, who is basically the same guy from a different country, who got sentenced to 45 years in prison, and he's barely been there? He's probably hasn't even gotten settled in yet. And the president's going to release him? Doesn't make any sense. And I'll tell you what, regime change as a policy of the United States generally in our history has not worked out well. Think of South Vietnam. Think of the Bay of Pigs, Iraq and Afghanistan. It results in the deaths of U.S. service members without the intended outcome. And in this case, I don't even think we know the intended outcome. President needs to make a case to the American people when he is about to put thousands of American men and women in harm's way. This is not the way to manage the U.S. military. Hey, I want to thank all of you for spending the time here today. I'm sorry the room is so warm in here, but...
And pretty much, y'all, we're talking about, if you just joined and you are probably clueless as to what we're talking about, we are talking about this right here, where this boat was blew up. They said these people were barely, they were trying to survive pretty much. So they were no, targets, or they wasn't any harm to anybody. They were literally holding on for dear life, and then they bombed again, and they just pretty much killed these people.
Administration doubling down on the decision to strike an alleged drug boat near Venezuela in early September twice. NBC News reporting that second strike was ordered after the first failed to kill everyone on board, according to a U.S. official and a source familiar with the Pentagon's actions. Some lawmakers now raising legal concerns if the second strike targeted survivors, with questions growing about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's role.
Does the administration deny that that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Abe. Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law.
Admiral Frank Bradley is overseeing the growing U.S. military buildup in the region, which the administration says is targeting drug traffickers. Lawmakers on both sides now calling for more information.
And we're going to try to get to the facts.
Some say targeting incapacitated survivors after the initial strike could be a war crime.
And that is pretty much where we are, guys. They targeted somebody that was pretty much, if there was no, it was unnecessary. So basically, that's just like you saying that you are protecting yourself and you unalive somebody, but the person had no weapon. So this is, in fact, considered a war crime.
Don't do that. Everybody knows that. That is against the Geneva Conventions.
On Sunday, President Trump was asked about a second strike aimed at killing survivors.
Number one, I don't know that happened, but no, I wouldn't have wanted that, not a second strike.
Hegseth now placing responsibility for the second strike on Admiral Bradley, posting, "He has my 100% support. I stand by him and the combat decisions he has made." Meanwhile, President Trump held an Oval Office meeting Monday with his team, including Hegseth, to discuss Venezuela. Also meeting with the president yesterday, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who posted afterwards that she was recommending a new domestic policy, a, quote, full travel ban on every damn country that's been flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies. Trump has intensified his crackdown on immigration in the wake of last week's shooting of 2 National Guard members in Washington, allegedly by an Afghan national who entered the U.S. legally in 2021. Overnight, President Trump shared Secretary Noem's post on social media. We've reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for more details and have not heard back. Sir?
Of course we have not heard back. They are not accountable for nothing, right? Let's get into what Pete Hegseth had to say, because this is all about what he did. He is over this Department of War that they gave a whole new name. Why is these things happening? Let's get into it, okay?
All right, this morning, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth very much in the spotlight over growing scrutiny on these questions of the deadly attack in the Caribbean that have raised questions about a possible war crime. Let's talk to CNN Chief Data Analyst Harry Enton. Again, Hegseth is no stranger to controversy here. This is a new round of focus on him for whatever role he may or may not have played. Where does he sit with the American people right now?
Yeah, this is not the first time that we have covered Pete Hegseth, and there's a reason why, and that is because he has simply put not been a popular guy in the American electorate. I mean, Pete Hegseth's net favorability in the last year, positive. There have been no polls in which his net favorability has been positive. Every single poll that I could find in the Roper Center archives has his net favorability in the negative. From when Donald Trump first nominated him nearly a year ago or about a year ago to now, every single poll has found that the American people are more likely to dislike than like him. And the first poll that was taken found that the plurality of Americans said that the United States Senate should not confirm him to the post of Secretary of Defense.
No polls?
No polls. Not 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. All of those, the reputable polls in the Roper Center archive.
All right. Is that because people have no interest in Pete Hegseth?
No, this is the whole thing, which is that Pete Hegseth, I said at the beginning of this, has been generating so much interest, far more interest than the normal defense secretary. I was just interested in the polls that were asking the popularity rating of recent defense secretaries. There have been at least 10 in terms of Pete Hegseth. There were 0 for Lloyd Austin. Esper had 0. Mad Dog Jim Mattis had only 2. This is extremely unusual for a defense secretary to be generating this much interest, especially when we're not at a time of war. You have to go all the way back to Bob Gates to find this many polls asking about the popularity rating of a defense secretary. And of course, Bob Gates served 4 times as long so far as Pete Hegseth did. And of course, that was during a time of war.
Okay, so given this new round of controversy swirling around Pete Hegseth, what are the markets saying about his chances of sticking around?
This is, I think, a great chance to use the prediction market odds. Chance to be the first to leave Trump's cabinet. Pete Hegseth, on Friday, it was just 18%. It's now doubled. It's now doubled to 35%, given the recent controversy, John Berman. So a lot of folks out there who are putting their money where their mouth is think there's a far better chance that Pete Hegseth exits the cabinet now, being the first one to back on Friday. And one last thing, Mr. Berman, just to put this in for some perspective for you, the chance to be the first to leave Trump's cabinet, Pete Hegseth, 35%, Pam Bondi, just 10%. And then we've got this gentleman over here,
Steve Myron
at 8%. But again, that 35% way higher than the 10, this doubling. You were very interested in it.
Doubled in the last few days. That does tell you something. Harry Enton, great to see you this morning.
Lawmakers from both parties are pressing the Trump administration for answers over the legality of a follow-up strike on an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean. The question is, did the U.S. commit crimes? Who is responsible, if so? Joining me now from Capitol Hill is Senator Jack Reed, who is the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Thank you so much for being here, sir. It was really interesting to see over the weekend the statement that came into my inbox from you and the Republican chair of the committee, Senator Roger Wicker, together vowing to investigate these strikes. First, what are you hoping to get? Tapes, transcripts?
Well, we've requested previously, both Roger and I, for a whole litany, beginning with the videotapes, going to the after-action reports, the exhorts. Many of them are required by law to be given to the committee, and they've avoided that law. They've ignored it. So we need information because we have to make a judgment of whether this operation is legal, not just the individual strikes, but the whole operation. And then, of course, the attention is now being focused on one of the strikes and the possibility of criminal activity.
Senator Wicker, the chairman, said this morning to Manu Raju that he expects that the committee will get full access to everything that you just discussed. Do you share his optimism?
Well, I hope so. Again, the chairman has taken a very thoughtful and in many cases courageous step to insist that we get this material. One of the reasons why I'm so confused that they won't release the material is that they have video of the entire operation of all these strikes, then they could essentially and effectively dispute the allegations that have already been made. So I'm very suspicious that they've never shared that tape with us and that they are consciously trying to cover up what took place.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think there's serious issues of legality under United States law, under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which governs military personnel, and under international law. And I think that is one of the factors that they're considering.
Senator, I want you to listen to Pete Hegseth. He is in a cabinet meeting currently with the president, and he had a chance to speak, and he spoke to what is going on in the operation and specifically kind of this controversy. Take a listen.
And we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. We've had a bit of a pause because it's hard to find boats to strike right now, which is the entire point, right? Deterrence has to matter, not arrest and hand over and then do it again, the rinse and repeat approach of previous administrations. This is meant to get after that approach. And I will just end by saying, as President Trump always has our back, we always have the back of our commanders who are making decisions in difficult situations.
What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that he is still propagating the line that this is a critical and decisive and effective way to stop drugs coming in. And first of all, drug trafficking is a law enforcement issue. We currently have the Coast Guard and others who are operating in the Caribbean, disrupting the trade. That could be enhanced, and rather than spending millions of dollars doing that, they're spending it on military activities. And he forgot to mention that we have a carrier task force group in the Caribbean. We have multiple destroyers. We have a Marine Expeditionary Unit that does not have anything to do with drug interdiction. This is, I think, just an incredibly challenging situation, and the fact that it's bad strategy, it's bad law enforcement, and it could be a serious crime in the law of war.
Effectively, what it sounded like he was saying is that the ends justify the means, that there are fewer boats coming because they're scared, because people are getting killed.
Well, first of all, let's put it in perspective. Fentanyl is the #1 drug that is killing Americans. It does not come from Venezuela.
Right,
it
this
comes
is
through
apparently
Mexico.
mostly cocaine.
This is mostly cocaine. They are a transit point for cocaine shipments. A great many of those shipments go to Europe as well as the United States. And, knocking off a speedboat with perhaps a ton of cocaine is not going to decisively disrupt the cocaine trade coming out of Venezuela. More intensive interdiction with increased Coast Guard participation would be a better approach. The other issue, I think, is that, one of the factors that drives use in the United States is demand. And most narco traffickers are not in those boats. They pay people to do that. And usually people are not significantly involved with narco trading. It's the way they make money.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than doing that, we should spend a lot more resources on law enforcement in the United States, They're actually cutting that back in terms of federal intervention, and also medical care and therapy that will get people off drugs and prevent them from dying because of drug addiction.
Senator Jack Reed, thank you so much for being here. Please let us know, obviously, as soon as you get those tapes and that information, that you can share it with us, because a lot of people have the questions that you have.
Well, as you guys can see, nobody is being honest. We want to know, why did they blow up the boats and basically unalive these people, and come up with this bullshit story and tell us that that is what happened, when we know, based on what they're saying, because liars, when you lie so much, you really can't keep up with your lies. But what is Donald Trump saying? Donald Trump is, unfortunately, he still is the president. Incompetent, yes, but he is still the president. What is he saying? What is his take on this? Pretty much he ain't saying shit, because he doesn't care.
Mr. President, as you said, it has been a historic year at the Department of War. Recruiting and retention over this year are at the most historic levels our country has ever seen. I had a chance to be on a aircraft carrier destroyer over Thanksgiving. The spirit in our ranks since the election under President Trump is unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it as a soldier myself in uniform, and I know a lot of you feel the same way. We've ripped out the DEI and the political correctness. It's all merit-based at the department. We're getting back to basics: accountability, training, readiness, lethality, and that's reviving that spirit. Mr. President, we're rebuilding the military, historic investments. I just took briefings on the Golden Dome and F-47, next generation capabilities that are going to make sure that for generations to come, America has the most powerful, most capable, most lethal military in the world, which you have rebuilt once and we're rebuilding again. And then we're reestablishing deterrence and credibility. If you look at what happened, we deal with every day the outcome of what happened in Afghanistan, the debacle under Joe Biden. We just dealt with it in the streets of Washington, D.C. with those 2 National Guardsmen. And then,
is it ever possible for these people to not bring up Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the Democrats? Have you ever saw any previous presidents that spent so much of their time talking about the last people? This is how you know that these people are freaking incompetent. Why come we can't move forward? Y'all still looking back, making up lies, talking about stuff that really never happened, but yet we're still in the same place.
what happened on October 7th with Hamas, what happened in Ukraine, a war that never would have started under President Trump, we're having to rebuild that. So whether it's freedom of navigation and taking the fight to the Houthis, whether it's Midnight Hammer, those beautiful B-2s going 37 hours back and forth, undetected, delivering with precision, and Iran not getting nuclear capabilities, Europe and NATO stepping up to 5%, locking down our southwest border. It's been an honor to work with Christy and Tom and everyone else down there to lock it to zero, operational control of our border. And then it's getting after and going after narco terrorists and designated terrorist organizations in our own hemisphere. As I've said, I'll say again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. And Joe Biden tried to approach it.
He said putting them at the bottom of the ocean. So is that not admitting to a war crime? I mean, what is going on here?
Kid gloves. And allow them to come across the border. Cartels take over community, 20 million people, hundreds of thousands of Americans poisoned. And President Trump said, no, we're taking the gloves off. We're taking the fight to these designated terror organizations. And it's exactly what we're doing. So we're stopping the drugs, we're striking the boats, we're defeating narco terrorists, and we're standing.
And you may say one thing, that drugs coming in through the sea by sea are down 91%. And I don't know who the 9% is.
I'm not sure either, sir.
But down 91% by sea.
We've had a bit of a pause because it's hard to find boats to strike right now, which is the entire point, right? Deterrence has to matter, not arrest and hand over and then do it again, the rinse and repeat approach of previous administrations. This is meant to get after that approach. And I will just end by saying, as President Trump always has our back, we always have the back of our commanders who are making decisions in difficult situations than we do in this case and all these strikes. They're making judgment calls and ensuring that they defend the American people. They've done the right things. We'll keep doing that, and we have their backs.
I don't know. What are you guys saying? The fear Pete Hegseth is saying publicly is to put the fear of God into American enemies. Hence, his title was changed to War Rather Than Defense, and the soldiers are warriors, not social workers. Whatever. So y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments with regards to this, because it looks like, you know, we'll be talking about this at least for the next, we got 1 year down, at least for the next 3 years, because we have a whole clown president and his cronies.